Good afternoon, and welcome to the 800 Credit Score Man Show. I am your host, Kevin King. He is I, and I am him, the 800 Credit Score Man himself. And I want to come and say thank you, each and every one of you guys and gals, for listening over the last year. Today is the 1 year anniversary show of the 800 Credit Score Man Show, and I can't believe that it has been an entire year. So I want to thank each and every one of you guys for coming in and listening and sharing this information and sharing the show with all of your friends and your family and your fraternity and your sorority and everybody. So thank you so very, very much for listening to the 800 Credit Score Man Show. Now, today's show is going to work just a little bit different just because it is the anniversary show. So I want to kind of do a little review, tell you guys about where we came from and things of that nature. So stick with me today. And of course, I'm going to give you some information to help you improve your credit scores. So it is the 1 year anniversary of the 800 Credit Score Man Show. So let me tell you how this whole thing started. So the show started actually with, I was on a place called Buy More Radio. So thank you to Buy More Radio. We started the 800 Credit Score Man Show. It launched Memorial Day weekend in 2016. And of course, I didn't want to do it on Memorial Day weekend this year because so many people have so many things to do that you may not be listening to the show at all. So I wanted to do it this week, the weekend before Memorial Day. So although those recordings are nowhere to be found, they're not saved anywhere, anything like that, unfortunately. So I started again when we started the podcast in itself. So back in the day when I started with Buy More Radio, and I affectionately refer to them as the Stepping Stone. So I want to again say thank you to them for getting this whole thing started. Back in the day, I'm sure when I started that show, I told you guys all about my family and my kids and my parents and my siblings, all on that show. So I won't go into all of those things today, but I do want to say a special thank you to my entire family, including my wife, Yolanda, my kids. You know my kids' names because you hear them at the end of the show, at the end of every show. And then also my parents, Robert and Irene King, my brother, Robert King. Well, let me say this, Dr. Robert Lee King Jr., and my sister as well, Pamela Denson. So thank you so much for your support. I'm sure back in the day when I first started on that very first show, I gave my dad a shout out because his birthday is always around Memorial Day. I'm going to save him for next week. I'm going to save him for next week because it's closer to his birthday in that regard. So again, thank each and every one of you guys for tuning in to the 800 Credit Score Man Show. And I want to ask that you continue to share this show. Continue to share this show because this is information that some of all of us need. I don't care if your credit score is 500 or your credit score is 800. This is some information that you may need and you can pass on to help other people. That's what we're trying to do here. We're trying to help people increase their credit scores. That has always been the mission, is to help you increase your credit scores, which lowers the interest rates you have to pay, and it saves you money. That has always been the mission. So what are we going to talk about on the show today? There are several things we want to talk about. The first thing I just mentioned, our mission. So we're going from mission to movement. There's mission and then there's a movement. So we're going to move from mission to movement, and I'm going to tell you about that a little bit later in the show. And then today we're going to talk a little bit about the 5 factors that encompass your credit score. And I've said this before, but I'm going to do it in a little bit different way, so maybe you'll get it and you'll see what I'm talking about. And the reason this came about was because I was having several conversations actually over the last couple of weeks about just this subject. Why is my credit score the way it is? And I had to explain this to several people. So I'm going to put that out there today as well. So let's do a little bit of recap. Before I start that, I want to give this first shout out. So happy 12th wedding anniversary to my wife. We were married 5/21/05. So our anniversary is coming up on tomorrow, 12 years in the game. So happy anniversary to you, sweetheart. So then let's go on and let's get to this moving from where we started with the Stepping Stone over to the podcast. So the entire reason that I did podcasts is because so many people could not hear the show at the particular time that it was aired. The show has always aired at 1:30 Central Standard Time, but it's on a Saturday. Even I have issues at 1:30 on Saturday because I have kids that have activities and I'm involved in a few other organizations as well. So we moved to podcasts and it increased our listeners. Now let's look where we came from. So we came from being on a stepping stone. We started a podcast. The podcast started with Spreaker.com. The reason I'm on Spreaker.com is because of Jason Robinson. So this week and this show, I'm going to shout out some people that have been instrumental in getting the 800 Credit Score Man show where it is. And Jason Robinson is one of those people because he told me about Spreaker. Not even so I can podcast on Spreaker, but so I can listen to someone else's podcast, and I was able to get onto Spreaker.com myself with the 800 Credit Score Man show. So thank you so very, very much, Jason. I wanted to make sure that I mentioned you because if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't even know about Spreaker, and the people listening wouldn't know about me and Spreaker as well. So we started that podcast with Spreaker.com. Within the time frame, we were picked up by iTunes. Now, how big is that? iTunes is the biggest podcast platform there is. We were picked up by iTunes. We also added Google Play. We also added Stitcher. We added SoundCloud, and as well as on YouTube. So we're in all these places, so you really have no excuse at all. If you say, I don't have a smartphone, which I only know 3 people that probably don't have a smartphone, and they're probably over 60, 65, but even the people that I know over 60, 65 have a smartphone. So there's no excuse at all for you not to listen to the 800 Credit Score Man show. You can always catch it on demand at any of those places at all. All right, so we did that. We added all of those things. We have had so far, just on Spreaker and iTunes alone, over 13,000 listeners. So 13,000 different listeners and downloads, people that are listening to the show. And I want to say thank you very much to each and every one of you guys. Now, over the last couple of weeks, I've gotten a lot of emails and communication from people that are new to the show. They're saying, I just found your podcast. I am binge listening to it and things like that. So I want to say thank you to you guys. If there's anybody that's new to the show that's listening today because somebody shared it with you or what have you, I want to say welcome. Welcome to the 800 Credit Score Man show, and thank you so very much for listening. Doesn't matter how you listen to it or where you listen to it at, it's always available for you on demand at any one of those platforms. Just pick one and listen to it there. All right, so we did all of those things throughout the year. We also started a Facebook group called the Credit Score Comeback. I deemed at the end of 2016 that 2017 is the year of your credit score comeback. Now we're 5 months in to 2017. I need you guys to go ahead and reevaluate where you are within your credit score and how you are doing. Now, if you're not doing as well as you anticipated, then you need to make some changes, make a plan, get a strategy, and work that plan so you can increase your credit scores. Again, the mission has been for you to increase your credit scores so you can lower the interest rates that you pay and put more money in your pocket. So that has always been the mission. So I talked about all those platforms. I'm going to announce just a little bit later in the show another place where you may potentially get it. And this is very, very exciting. It's exciting to me. Now, you absolutely have no excuse at all not to listen to the 800 Credit Score Man show, and you'll be able to share it with people, okay? So I want to thank my entire family, my fraternity, Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated, and all of my friends for listening, sharing the show, and giving me things that I can improve upon, giving me some pats on the back and things like that. I want to thank each and every one of you guys for doing that for me. So let's do this. During the show also, before I get to the 5 factors that are affecting your credit score and how that whole thing works, let me do this. I want to pause here just for a second and say also, unfortunately, during this year, we also lost a avid supporter of the 800 Credit Score Man show, and that's Chrissy King. We lost Chrissy King during this year as well, and she is the person that when I started at Stepping Stone, she gave me my intro song. She's the one who introduced me to that, and on every week she would ask me before the show aired, what are you going to talk about this week? How about this? Let me ask you a question. Things like that. So Chrissy was really, really inspirational to how the whole show works. And I want to say that I really miss her and rest in peace. Yesterday was LaKayla King's birthday. She would have been 15 years old. She also was tragically lost. And so I want to give my condolences out to the entire family. So thank you very much, everybody, for listening and indulging me in that. I also, even during the year, gave Chrissy her shout out and her accolades prior to this tragedy, as well as at the end of one of the shows, I spoke about her and gave her a tribute as well. So Chrissy, rest in peace. All right. So we also, during this year, we also gained our first sponsor. Now, you all should know who the sponsor is. The sponsor is Cute as a Cupcake, Cupcakery and Bake Shop, which is located in Maryville, Indiana. That has been our sponsor for the question of the day. Now, what's funny, last week, a week before last, I'm sitting in the car the day of the show, and the show's not playing, the show's not on, and my 6-year-old is in the back seat doing the commercial for Cute as a Cupcake. I thought that was the cutest thing in the world. All right, so let's get on a little bit to these factors that encompass your credit score. And I want you to think of it like this. All of you guys have been in school at some point in time. I don't care if you stopped school in the 8th grade or high school or college. You've been in school at some point in time. And so you know how the scoring system works. You get an A if you got 100%, right? You get an A if you get everything right, you got 100%. So let's look at the 5 factors that encompass your credit score. So the 5 factors are how well you pay, your debt utilization, which is dealing with your credit cards. That's going to be key to what we're going to discuss today. Your debt utilization, which is dealing with your credit cards. It's not dealing with what your debt utilization is on your mortgage or a car, only on your credit cards. And then there's the length of history, so that's how long you've had credit, and then your mix, which is what kinds of credit you had, the types you have, whether it's installment or revolving, and then also your inquiries. Those are people that are, pulling your credit report and trying to take a look at it to see if they want to grant you credit, things of that nature. So those are the 5 factors. So if you take a look at it and you think about it in this frame, you think about it as if you're in school. So you have 5 assignments, but your assignments don't all have the same weighting. So they're all not 20% of what your score is, because 5 times 20% is going to be 100%. They're weighted differently. So you have some assignments that are much bigger, and you have some assignments that are smaller in when it comes to figuring out what your grade is going to be, if you will. All right, so you got these 5 things, and I just mentioned the 5. And so the inquiries is 10% of your score. That's 10% of your score. So if you keep your inquiries low, you don't want to get a lot of inquiries. If you look at a place like Credit Karma, or you go to credit.com, any of those kinds of places, it'll show you that if you have more than 4 inquiries, then that means that you're having a little bit too many. So if you've got 10, you've got 12, you've got 15 inquiries, then you've got too many. Now, your inquiries only stay on your credit report for 24 months. Not like if it's something bad that's on your credit report for 7 years. If you file bankruptcy, it's 10 years. Inquiries only stay on your credit report for 24 months. They are not a huge factor in your score. They're only 10% of your score, right? And even this, in the new FICO scoring system, FICO 9 is the version that they're on. Think about it if you have a phone and they keep upgrading your software. So this FICO 9, after 12 months, they don't even bother with your inquiries at all. So after 12 months, even though they're still on your credit report, it's not factored into your score at all. So you're not getting dinged for any of those things. So that's only 10% of your score. Now the other 10%, another 10% of your score is your mix. So I